So there's one move in the golf swing that is perhaps the most misunderstood and even demonized move that you could ever make. Hardly any videos are out there or articles are out there telling you to do what I'm about to show you. But when you do, you're going to unlock an entirely new world of distance and accuracy. Don't believe me, you're going to try it for yourself, but you'll never go back to all the other conventional wisdoms when you've tried this for yourself. So if you're looking for more distance and accuracy, I mean mega distance, I want you to stay tuned because right after this is coming up. Hey, this is Steve from HitItLonger.com. I continue my journey to hit the ball longer and straighter than I ever have before. I'd love to show you how to do this too. All right, so the move in question is super, ultra simple. It's simply the right hand, or maybe the trail hand if you're left-handed, I'll call it the trail hand. At the top of the swing, hopefully you've got your wrist wound out up like this. So something like that, like a waiter holding a tray of pizza as he walks through a restaurant, like that. So your wrist is in what we might call extension, pinned back. Now, there's all kinds of drills and tools and conventional wisdom that tells you that you're supposed to maintain this angle through impact. Otherwise, you cannot compress the ball or, I don't know, forward lean, all that stuff. But if you look at all other sports and you actually look at the best golfers themselves and zoom in on what they're actually doing, you'll be shocked, because they're all moving into flexion. In other words, they're letting the hand whip past the arm bones and move into this position. Well, you'd say, Steve, that's flippy, that's cuppy, that's casty. You can't time that, Steve. You can't time that. So some of you will turn off the video now because you've thrown up on yourself, and that's okay. You won't get to the good stuff. Like, if you're still watching, gonna get a lot of benefit out of this. Now, just like in any other sport, and I'm gonna play a few analogous videos for you just to show you that basically in any swinging or striking sport, this motion is made, this wrist snap is made. Let's look at overhand baseball pitch. You can see the pitcher's coming out hand down like this. Very forceful and free snap of the wrist. So the hand points downwards just after the ball. Their hand is like this. A baseball's pitcher's wrist is operating almost dangling from the ligaments so they can be free to respond to the elbow snapping. Okay, let's look at another one, and that's again similar motion but with an implement, a tennis serve or a tennis slam. Tennis looks like that. Same thing, we got a wrist snap and the hand turns down like this. Let's look at one of the current home run kings right now, Bryce Harper. He's a lefty, so it'll be harder for me to demonstrate, but I want you to see, we'll stop it early in his follow through. And by God, sure, you have some pronation too, but that wrist is coming into slight flexion. He is snapping that wrist. Yeah, it's going over too, which most home run hitters will do, is pronate the rear hand over and hook the ball down the line or into the alley. But he's got flexion. Let's look at one more. Another one that's very easy to tell, and that's super slow motion. These are some great quality videos that I found here. Here's a softball pitcher, very skilled, possibly college or even Olympic level. So top. You can clearly see as she comes through that her wrist, she's got a little pronation too. She might be trying to throw a curve of some kind, but she's going into freely into flexion. You cannot get power without this. You're never going to hit it out there. One of the big reasons that you don't hit it out there is because you've been taught to impede this move like it's evil. This is the devil, because of course it would make you cast, right? And sure, that would be true if I never move my body at all and I just throw that club. Yeah, I'm going to be casty and scoopy. But what's really wrong here? The wrist itself is in perfect position. Let's look at Hogan. Even Hogan. Now Hogan slightly delayed this move to hit the fade, and we'll see how to do that in a second, but he also impeded it a little bit. He wasn't as free. Tiger was the same way, not super free, and yet still. Look at Hogan when he goes through impact to about here. His wrist is in this position. He's just doing it here. If you're doing it here, is it too early? No, you fired the wrist free and in time. You just simply don't have the body motion to accompany it. You're all wrist and arm and no step and rotation, which is the same step and snap as all these other sports. Tennis, rock back, step, snap. Softball, step, snap. Baseball, step, snap. Hitting, step, snap. Why would golf be so much different? It's crazy that this has been demonized, this little motion. Even now, some of you are heading down to comments to say, this is flippy. You'll never be able to time this. Well, how do the baseball pitchers, the softball pitchers, even javelin throwers, how do they control? I mean, baseball pitchers have to be super accurate. More so probably than golfers do, to throw that ball right over not just a 17-inch wide plate, but the outer third or the inner third, 5, 6-inch, 8-inch window from 60 feet. Very, very tight with their accuracy. Same thing with up and down. Everybody in every sport has timing to the step and the snap. That's just inherent. Now, doesn't mean that this has to be casty flippy. That's not what I look like. I'm releasing the hell out of it, but I promise you, I am flapping it so free. But I guarantee you right at the moment of impact, because I'm moving my pivot and rotating my body at the same time or slightly even in the lead, that I'm arriving at impact with a slightly forward-leaning shaft, with my wrist just before it arrives at anatomically neutral, which would be right about here. So I am still in a very slight extension, but you'd get fooled by the photograph into thinking I held it and waited and waited and waited and maybe let it go after, but that's not the case. The force to do that ramps up way back here, starts ramping up, reaches its peak here, starts to unramp as you actually flop free from the ligaments here. Your club is now just responding to that force you put on it, and it's bending your wrist for you now, probably. And I'm just relaxing and freewheeling down at the bottom. However, it's the sequence where I'm going to go step, rotate, snap. Got to have that in the sequence if you're going to make this come out right. However, when you can freely flap, and for those of you willing to take this on for the first time and really snap, whip the wrist through, the results are just amazing. As the distance and the accuracy you can hit the ball is ridiculous compared to trying to hold it. Imagine a batter trying to hold their wrist and time it right to where the pitch is going to hit the bat. Your swing would look like this. Now that's a check swing. We know what that is. That's a check swing. My right wrist is still in extension. I have not let the head go. So all I'm looking for you to do is throw that thing. Throw it without impedance. Throw it without tension. Make your hand feel like it's flopping back and forth and feel like you're cracking a whip or cracking a towel instead. You're going to pick up so much speed. Let's give it one more look from a totally different angle. You'll be able to see how, again, your comments about, it's hard to time this, Steve. I'm not making the toe rollover with this action. Let's look at the action by itself. Wrist extension, wrist flexion. Look at that, the club arcs beautifully while the club face stays squared to the arc. I'm advancing the club 30 degrees this way, 30 degrees this way, and keeping the face dead square to the arc. We're going to come down. Wrist is an extension, but it is rapidly straightening. I'm not waiting. I'm throwing. I'm applying force to the shaft to make it speed up. Here I come in. The club face is dead square to the arc. Strike it square. My body is cleared. The shaft is leaning forward. I've got a ball first strike. I'm not holding or impeding this for this magic moment. I'm not going for a photograph. I am whipping. Now after that, I come out. I'm going into flexion for the first time here. Yes, I'm trying to go into it from the top, but because of my body rotation, I don't catch up until here. But watch this club face, square to the arc, all the way around the curve towards you. Let's take a look at that now. And try to slow it down and see the same behavior. Very straight shot. Let's look at that in slow motion. And you can see the club coming around the arc. My wrist is flapping free, accelerating the club to a high speed with very little effort, and keeping the face square to the arc. There can't be a better motion. This motion, you might demonize it, you may turn it off and say, Steve, you're crazy. I'm just going to go back to the conventional wisdom that says you're supposed to hold this as long as you can. And I'm going to keep hitting 210, 220, 230 off the tee instead of 280, 290, 300, which you can do if you follow this. By the way, just about everybody on TV does this. You've gotten fooled by a photograph or a slow motion video. A lot of instructors have gotten fooled thinking, oh, it looks like they're holding the wrist. But now that we can measure the forces acting on the club, that's telling a whole new story, that we're actually throwing the club and accelerating the club from way back here, throwing that wrist into this position, just like a baseball pitcher steps, turns, and snaps with the wrist turning down like this. So, just like every other sport, of course, there's timing involved. Big secret, there's timing involved. However, we're not going to hit it fat. We're not going to cast. You're going to look, when you have the pivot down, you're going to look so laggy. Even while you're pushing, trying to straighten the force, you're just not seeing the response of the wrist and the club head till a little later. But that doesn't mean the force isn't trying to grind that angle open, accelerate the club. You've just got to do it in the right order. Step, turn, snap. Just like you learned when you threw a ball for the first time when you were 2 years old. When you swung a bat for the first time at 3 years old. anything like this, you probably have already learned how to do, but you've been coached out of it by a lot of golf instruction that's looking at a photograph that looks like this. Even Hogan goes into this position. The freest are the hitters that go the furthest with the least amount of effort. And so in my generation, in my golf history, that's Fred Couples and Dustin Johnson. Super long, but they just don't look like they're swinging that fast. You can see they're going freely into slight flexion this way, and then going over the shoulder, letting the club fly around the circle without impeding it or trying to slow it down or control it or delay it. It's just simple. Green light all the way from the top. It makes it so easy to swing a club like this. Hey, I hope you'll give this a try. How will you know when you're doing this? Because you're going to make a swoosh sound. The only way you're going to make a swoosh sound, you can't make a swoosh sound holding the wrist. Snap it, make it swoosh louder, make it swoosh louder, and you're going to be able to see the action that I'm talking about. It's going to be a huge game changer for some people out there. I hope so. If it is for you, leave it down in the comments. I'm very excited to read them in about a week or two. So here we go. Step, turn, snap. Around the circle. The circle is this way. Step, turn, and snap that right hand through, just like this. I think you're going to get some really outstanding results. Hey, thanks so much for watching and considering this motion that I think universal among good players, but they don't know it, or they try to coach them out of it. I'm Steve. Head over to my website, hititlonger.com, for hundreds more videos and articles that I'm sure are also going to help you improve your golf game. And as usual, I'll either see you in the next video or I'll see you longer and straighter down the fairway. Everybody take good care.